In this video, I'm going to give you 5 tips on the diagonal palm shift. I am assuming if you're watching this video that you already know what the DPS or the diagonal palm shift is, but if you don't, I'll briefly run through it and where it came from in this video as well. The move was first introduced in 1902, which came out of a book called The Expert at the Card Table, written by somebody named S.W. Erdnase. In essence, it's a way to insert a card into the middle of the deck and indetectably steal it right out into a palm position. There's been a lot of good explanations and tutorials on YouTube and other places over the years on this move. The only thing I'm doing is giving you my own personal tips that I do to make this move a little bit smoother for me in my hands, and so maybe these tips will work for you as well. Let's get into it. Alright, so let's first take a look at what this move actually looks like, okay? So what happens is, like I said, you take a card like the 2 of clubs here, and you put it in the middle of the deck, and with no funny moves, you can indetectably just steal it right out the deck into your palm, just like this, that 2 of clubs. Now, when I say indetectably, I do mean for people who don't know what the DPS already is. If you know what the DPS is and what the movements are, then you'll probably notice those movements. But keep in mind, people who's never practiced the move or seen the move will have no clue whatsoever that what you're doing and how you just stole that card out. All right, so just keep that in mind. And I think the way I've just done it is the best way and the most silent way to also do it, because sometimes you'll hear that click, which I'll cover as well in this video. Alright, so if you don't know what the DPS is at all, it's basically a way to steal a card right out of the deck, and this is an overview of what that actually looks like. So a card is left out jogged and you push it in. However, when you push it in, it's actually being brought to a in jogged or angle jogged position like this, at which point you actually take it out of the deck like this into your palm like this. So that's what's happening there. That's in essence what the DPS is. Let's get into detail how to make this move smooth and how to actually execute it correctly. So tip number 1 is actually the insertion itself, okay? So a lot of people will tell you to, for the angle jog, to push it in from the corner like this. That way you get the angle jog. But my favorite angle jog technique to use is a technique by Jerry Andrus called the hinge technique. And this is what that looks like. So the card is put in, and you can actually push it in from the front, just how you normally would with this hinge technique. And what that is you take your middle finger or your second finger here, and you want to wrap it just around the deck so this the top joint just wraps around on top of the deck like this, sort of creating like a hinge around the side of the deck just like this, okay? So and you really want to squeeze down. So imagine like there's like a vise on the corner of the deck here, just holding the deck in place, okay, very tightly. That's going to create sort of like this is going to be the pivot point. So even if you try to push it in straight, it's going to come out diagonally, okay? So like this. I'm trying to push it in straight. I really am, but it's coming out diagonally like this, okay? So here's that exposed view like this. So here it is. That hinge technique, you can really try to push it in straight, but it won't go in straight. It'll always come out diagonally. Just remember that hinge technique. It's a very powerful thing to use, and you don't have to worry about doing this kind of weird stuff at the corner, okay? So that's just a tip for you. So tip number 2 on doing this move, it's actually a lot easier if the card is lower in the deck. So the closer the card is to your palm, the easier it's going to be to actually put it into your palm, right? It just makes logical sense. All right, so don't try to aim for the top of the deck or the middle of the deck. Always try to aim for the lower part of the deck, like a quarter of the way up, or just maybe a third, okay? So, and also, the move itself requires a lot of squaring of the deck like this, like you're having to square the deck, but a kind of a weird thing is squaring a squared deck. So what I like to do is maybe spread the cards like this and have one selected near the bottom of the deck. That way the deck is a little bit messy and I have an excuse to go in and square it up, right? So another way you can do it is to dribble the cards, all right? Maybe they can say stop somewhere like here and just leave the deck messy, like Queen of Hearts, and put it towards the bottom here. And so the deck is already messy. So you have a reason now. You always want to have a reason to square a deck, all right? So just leave it messy and it'll be your best friend there. So that's tip number 2. So tip number 3 is a way to avoid a lot of the, the notorious finger flashing that you have here. And the best way to avoid that is just to not do it at all and you use a different technique, okay? So the way I do it here is like this. So the card is here and it's inserted towards the bottom of the deck, the Jack of Diamonds. Now I have my hinge technique and I'm doing this. Now what you want to actually do as per the DPS itself is you want to leave the card angle jogged enough to where there's a corner sticking out here, just peeking through the side of the deck, covered by your thumb, of course. And you want to take your middle finger and your thumb and just pull it straight back like this. So you have control over the card via that corner with your thumb and your middle finger, and that can move independently throughout the deck just by just like this. So the best way to do this is to pull it back as much as you can before it butts up against your thumb back here. So that's about good right here. That's a perfect spot to have it. It's at this point that you're taught to pivot the card out with these fingers here, right? And this is where flashing comes into play, because you're always like this, trying to angle jog that card out like this. But the way I do it is not like that at all. And it's also kind of hard to do that. It's kind of a knacky move. And so an easier way to do that, and the way I do it, is this. So you're here, and you push a card back about right there. Now what happens here is these fingers are already on it, right? Naturally. So what you do instead is move the deck. For me, it's clockwise because I'm left-handed, but for you to be counterclockwise. So you want to just pivot the deck and just rotate the deck so it moves around the card rather than the card moving, if that makes any sense. So like this. You're not moving your fingers, you're simply moving the deck instead. So that'll create a position as such, where you have a part of the card, the front of the card here, that you can contact with your now middle finger, just like this. And what I'll actually do, so you can see it just a little bit better, is I'll switch to this clear deck here. And so let's say we have a card here. Now what happens is, like I said, you do this move and you're here. Now what you want to do is, like I said, just move the deck out of the way. Just move the deck so you're here in this position. And this is the position you want to be in, like this, to where you're holding the deck. And this front part of the card is contacting your middle finger. Now what happens at this point is you want to keep rotating the deck forward. Just move the deck forward, and that card is going to automatically pivot into your hand just by your middle finger. So it's a forward and clockwise rotation, all right? So it's forward and to, for me it's the right, but for you it's the left, okay? So up and around, so the deck moves around the card rather than the card moving, okay? So once again, we're here. All right, we take a card, Ace of Spades, pretty good card. All right, we do our move here like this. Now you want to move forward and around, so you're like this. All right, so forward and around like this. That way your middle finger comes into contact with the card. Now keep moving forward, and you want to keep, and the reason why you're doing this is to square the deck, right? So it's a squaring the deck motion. So you're like here, then the card's coming out like this. And at this point, you just want to keep moving the deck back and forth to square the deck. Now to actually extract the card and get it out of the deck, there's a couple things you can do. So I guess this is tip number 4 for you here. All right, so what you're gonna do when it comes, what's gonna happen here is you do the move, right, like this. And this is all just a squaring motion, all right? So that's the tip I forgot to mention, is the whole time you're doing this, it's just a squaring the deck motion like this, okay? So once you move the card back, that's the first squaring motion. The second squaring motion is when you pivot up and around, okay? So you're doing this to apparently just square the deck. And now I'm here. And the card's already almost out of the deck, okay? So at this point, you could even cop the card out if you wanted to. But we're here for the DPS, okay? So we're here at this point here. Now what's going to happen is you want to, again, go like this so the card comes out. about to this point, and it's already almost in the palm. So what you're going to do now is just make a sharp turn now, like this, at the same time squeezing up with your pinky and the base of your thumb here, like this. So this is exposed view. You want to make a sharp turn like this, and that's going to eliminate a click sound. Of course, it was there because of this acrylic deck, but you want to squeeze the deck upward, or I'm sorry, you want to squeeze the card upward like this to place it in a palm, but also at the same time make that sharp movement like this with the deck. I'll do that once more. All right, so we're here. We're going to do the move like this. All right, doing our squaring motions. Now at this point, what we want to do is clear the deck like this, really putting movement into the deck. And when you make that sharp movement, this is also the time to square the front of the deck when you make that sharp turn there to get the card out. The whole thing happens in one continuous fluid motion, okay? So we're here, we're pretending to square the deck, and we're wrapping the card around like this. It's being dragged with my middle finger now only, and so I make contact with the corner of the card with my pinky here, and I squeeze upward, do that sharp turn, and it comes out with no noise whatsoever. And that is my tips on the DPS, and here's one more time for you. Full speed, okay? So a card is selected. We'll go with the 3 of diamonds in this case. All right, that 3 of diamonds gets pushed in all the way, and just like that, I have the card. And it's just a fun move to practice when you're just not thinking about it and, you know, watching TV, listening to music, or just thinking about, you know, other things like that. And but full disclosure, the DPS is not the move I do to get a card out of the deck. It's just a move that I enjoy practicing because I think it warms up my hands, you know, and it keeps me limber. The move I use the most to get a card out is the convincing control and the cop move like this. One more, I guess, additional bonus tip for you is to further clean up the sound and for to shape the move a little bit better is when you're at the point of going up to get the card out, make it like a almost like go up with the deck like this, like just like showing the bottom card almost. That way it's the card's going to come a little bit easier without the dreadful click. Okay, so you're here, and once you move that card out, just go like this, and you won't have any clicking sound whatsoever if you just go like this. And it's all this the whole movement is you're not doing this. You're not moving your squaring hands around like this. You're not keeping the deck stationary. You're moving the deck instead is what I'm trying to say to you right now. All right, so this is what it would look like if you just moved your hands to square the deck. It's clunky and it's noisy and it just it looks bad. I mean, think about how you would look if you actually squared the deck for real. All right, it would look something like this. You could actually move the deck around, all right? So by moving the deck around the card for the DPS, you get a better, nice, cleaner, and more quiet DPS. But the one thing I want to stress the most about this DPS, guys, is really to avoid that awkward finger flash like this. You know, we've all seen it. It looks terrible, sounds terrible. The best way to avoid that, like I said, is to use the middle finger technique like this. It just drags out the deck like this with your middle finger. Okay, so you move the deck forward, and the card's just being rides along because your middle finger is in contact with it the whole time. All right, so you're like this, boom, it's out. So don't do this. Just do this. All right, and you got it. All right, guys, so as always, thank you so much for taking the time out of your busy day to watch this video. It truly does mean the world to me. And so if you learned something new and you've got value from this video, do me a huge favor and hit that like button and sub to the channel. Until next time, happy practicing. I love you guys.